and how we get better. Ken Cuccinelli, former acting DHS secretary in the first Trump administration. Miles Taylor, former DHS chief of staff. Good to have you both. Ken, you know, my big complaint, not so much with CBP, because they're working under the auspices of ICE, and ICE is running the overall administration of this. Put out the data. It's not enough to have Tom and Homan say, I look at the data every day. These are all bad guys. You know, non-bad guys are the exception to the rule, not the rule. Show us. Why is that so hard?
Well, it's not a small feat to gather everything up on a rolling basis. Nonetheless, I agree with you as a general matter. The real question becomes, what's the timeline for a regular expectation of data releases? And I think the American people expect that. I expect that. So I don't think there's anything unreasonable in that request, Chris. And obviously, they've been putting data out, but it hasn't been on a timeline that maybe the U.S. news media would like. When I was there, it was a monthly breakout, and it would roll in a week or two after the end of each month. So about every month, you were getting a month's worth of data.
Right.
That seems entirely reasonable. It's also the basis on which the agencies are already operating. So it fits with their operational tempo already. So I don't think there's anything unreasonable in that request.
Right. Here's what's changed, is what's on the screen right now. Right, Miles? That when Ken was in there, we didn't have everybody shooting them, coming into places they don't usually go and doing things we don't usually see, and then saying, well, it's all justified, but then we don't see the data for 3 or 4 weeks. That doesn't work. If you're going to justify an operation like this, you got to put it out in real time. I'm not justifying violence towards the officers, okay? That's absurd, illegal, and un-American. But what do you think about the style and choices of enforcement we're seeing from the federal government?
Well, first I would say, Chris, the data is showing that someone here is lying, because in the past couple of months, data has shown that the plurality of people in custody have no criminal record. We were told that this nationwide
other than being illegally in the country. Right. Other than being illegally present.
That's a crime.
But we were told that the priority was going to be criminal aliens. Ken dealt with this just like I did at DHS, and we did not at the time consider those people to be the criminals that we were prioritizing. Not just everyone, but the criminal aliens who've done bad things, dangerous things, endangered American lives. So the data is showing us that no, the administration is not going after those people. They originally told us, and what we said we were going after in the first Trump administration. But to your question, Chris, vandalism against law enforcement, never acceptable. But the temperature is also being turned up by this administration. Yeah, there are a handful of protesters slashing tires, but when you are slashing the Constitution to prosecute this campaign, you are intentionally provoking people. We've seen hundreds of Americans arrested as part of these efforts, which is not what should happen. We've seen people at the White House, officials threaten to suspend due process and habeas corpus. What is that? Why are people at the White House saying that? And we've got folks saying that the protesters are terrorists, okay? We've got them equating protesters to al-Qaeda when the vast majority of people protesting ICE are protesting peacefully and under their First Amendments. This administration, the White House,
being referred to as terrorists. Look, you're not arguing this on a fair and objective basis, Miles. The people who are referred to as terrorists are the ones who are attacking vehicles and personnel. The only American citizens who've been arrested are the ones who've attacked federal agents, and they should be arrested for that. Nobody's rounding up citizens. That's BS. No citizens are being deported. They're not being detained, except here we see one who is attacking federal agents. Recognize that picture. So, you know, that's a legitimate and frankly ought to be a prioritized aspect of the use of federal manpower in this whole set of operations. Yes, it's not al-Qaeda, but violence for political purposes is the definition of terrorism. And that's a lot of what we're seeing here.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.